We're very happy to welcome the Reverend Jeep.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here in the disembodied cyberspace that we are in right now. Good to see everyone. And thank you to Nick and Joseph and Joanne for facilitating, as well as Keelan and Connie and Myers. Thank you all so much. The title of my talk today is Strength is Overrated. I can't remove this notice about unmuting. I'd like to get this off my screen, please. Okay, let's do that. Strength is overrated. Vulnerability is spirit-led strength. People usually think of strength in terms of physical prowess, that we can overcome physical illness with a strong immune system built up through power smoothies and vitamins and gym workouts and marathons. Merriam-Webster defines strong as having or marked by great physical power, having moral or intellectual power. Now, we know that sometimes a strong point of view may be narrow-minded. We're taught to think that strength is a sustainable attribute impervious to vulnerability. Many of us think that vulnerability is weak. Merriam-Webster defines vulnerability as capable of being physically or emotionally wounded. Wounded is not weakness. Full-on use of strong will over anything is half-baked. Strength with an unaided will is weak. This is why I believe that strength is overrated and vulnerability is spirit-led. Metaphorically, Charles Fillmore talked about emotional and mental armor like this. When there is a strong man who is fully fortified with his armor, a stronger man can overcome him and take his armor and all that he protected. Consciously expressed ideas of vulnerability is the strong attribute. One's use of soul and will is the triumphant duo. Richard Rohr, the Franciscan priest and spiritual author, wrote, "Did you ever imagine that what we call vulnerability might just be the key to ongoing growth? In my experience, healthily vulnerable people use every occasion to expand, change, and grow. Yet it is a risky position to live undefended in a kind of constant openness to the other, because it means others could sometimes actually wound us. Indeed, vulnera comes from the Latin for to wound, but only if we take this risk do we also allow the opposite possibility. The other might also gift us, free us, and even love us. Living vulnerably, we utilize every opportunity to develop, to modify, and to cultivate our wounded, fearful selves. Rohr says that by taking the vulnerable risk, we open to profound returns in freedom from self-protective prisons, and often to love. And yes, it is daunting to live open-hearted, released from an armored position, and receptive to being loved for exactly who we are. Fillmore wrote about strength in our vulnerabilities. Adam man exists in the subconscious of a multitude of men, the wise man and the foolish man, the kind man and the cruel man, the loving man and the hateful man, the stingy man and the generous man, the hungry man and the full man, the happy man and the troubled man, the weak man and the strong man, the good man and the bad man, the live man and the dead man, the poor man and the rich man, the timid man and the courageous man, the sick man and the healthy man, the old man and the young man, the erratic man and the sane man. These and 1,000 other types of man as active personalities occupy the consciousness of every human being. Every male has within him the female, and every female has within her the male. In other words, we are both and. We are both strong and vulnerable. Living as such heals perceived weakness. As I've aged, I'm not the bad butch I used to be. And some might say, thank God, Jeep. Sometimes I can't even open a jar. Embracing my 67-year-old womanhood, including my surgically repaired hand and the other hand in need, with my arthritic knees and my asthmatic lungs, is to hold my fully physically human self in the light. I don't really want to be where I'm at physically. I want to be strong, impervious to faulty body parts. And I feel vulnerable to my waning physical strength. And I have to ask for help. Ugh. So thank goodness for Fillmore that he added, man's development is not primarily under the physical law because the physical law is secondary. There is a law of spirit, and the earthly is but the showing forth of some of the results of that law. We begin our existence as ideas in divine mind. Those ideas are expressed and developed and brought to fruitage, and the expression is the important part of the soul's growth. Asking for help is an ever developing strength of character, an act of acceptance and release, an opening for me to receive. That is an expression of soul growth. That's the law of spirit. That's divine mind strengthening my soul. It succeeds over misfortune. By letting ourselves float on the river of reality, we mindfully acquire protection through the acknowledgement of vulnerability and fortify our minds through cooperation and co-creation with spirit. We bring our vulnerable selves to divine mind into alignment with spirit. We don't strong arm nor hold title over vulnerability. Using divine mind, we assess what is necessary for our growth so that we apply understanding, wisdom, imagination, and faith. All these expressions are important to the soul's growth. On a soul level, through vulnerable adversity, I've been brought learnings, and that's to say, wisdom. And I'm humbled by life's process that brings me to new and deeper spiritual growth. People seek my counsel so that I am led to fulfill my life's purpose. Fillmore used the story of David and Goliath, an illustration of the mastery of spiritual over the material. He said Goliath trusted his armor, which represents the protective power of matter and material conditions. David, spiritual strength, had no armor or material protection. David's power was gained by trust in divine intelligence, through which he saw the weak place in Goliath's armor. And direct to this weak place, with the sling of his concentrated will, he sent a thought that shattered the forehead of the giant. This incident shows how easily it is to overcome the seemingly strong personal and material conditions when the mind of spirit is brought into action. David saw the weak place in Goliath's armor, his forehead, the third eye. And this is where the pineal gland lives. And the pineal gland is the geographic center of the brain, the epicenter of enlightenment. This is spiritually strategic thinking. The third eye, divine intelligence, is where there's perception beyond ordinary sight. The third eye is what we hope to open through meditation. And this is why we New Thoughters believe there is power in meditation, prayer, and positive thinking. These bring us into alignment with divine intelligence. And Fillmore continued, the third eye is considered the seat of the soul. And when considering the soul, we notice that David was confident in his ability to slay Goliath because he had slain the lion that killed his sheep. The lion represents the beast in humans. And so through our spiritual practices, we transmute the beast into finer energy that becomes a mighty soul strength. As Rohr asserts, if and when we can live honestly vulnerable life, the life we see mirrored in God, who is described as three persons perfectly handing themselves over, emptying themselves out, and then fully receiving what has been handed over, there will always be a centrifugal force flowing through, out, and beyond us. Then our spiritual life simply becomes the imitation of God, as impossible as this sounds to our ordinary ears. After embracing awareness and accepting my vulnerability, emptying myself, releasing myself to spirit, and being willing to fully receive what I have handed over, all acts of acceptance and humility, Then I enter into the realm of spirit, leading me closer to my own true self, the imitation of God. This process is a fine description of affirmative prayer. Everything that matters is in the realm of ideas. And when we align these ideas with faith in divine intelligence, then we are dealing with divine mind. This is vulnerability. This is being healed. War said, this is a great surprise and for some a disappointment. The divine flow has very little to do with you. The flow doesn't have to do with you being perfect, right, belonging to the right group, or even understanding the flow. Jesus never has any such checklist test before he heals someone. He just says, as it were, are you going to ask for or allow yourself to be touched? If so, let's go. The touchable ones are the healed ones. It's pretty much that simple. There's no doctrinal or moral test whatsoever. Jesus doesn't check if the people he heals are Jewish, gay, baptized, or even in their first marriage. There's only one question which he asks in various ways. Do you want to be healed? If the answer is a vulnerable, trusting one, the flow always happens and the person is always healed, usually on several levels. You just gotta love Richard Rohr. Vulnerability requires strength of will, willing to feel my feelings, willing to be wounded, because we know and trust divine mind and believe that healing makes me stronger. A healed broken heart is stronger than a heart never broken. Vulnerability requires wisdom, the power of thinking and feeling. It requires both faith to release my own humanity and to be faithful to divine intelligence. Vulnerability requires humility, to strip away the armor itself. Vulnerability requires higher consciousness. Our expressed soul discerns danger and safety of our internal and external surroundings and takes appropriate actions. Bombarding a problem with my unaided will is a use of strength that yields less than nothing. But when I align myself with spirit, then I prevail over poor behavior or ineffective thinking. Strength is the handmaiden to vulnerability. Strength is there to assist vulnerability in finding its expression. The equanimity of strength and vulnerability is an equation of both and rather than either or. We at New Thought believe true human selfhood is divine. We divinely attune through a positive force for good. Divine mind is the expression of that ultimate reality. And vulnerability brings us closer to that ultimate reality. Infinite intelligence, or God, is omnipotent and omnipresent. Therefore, in vulnerable creation, co-creation with spirit, I release my doubts, my fears, idiosyncrasies, my inclinations, my self-defeating behaviors, my proclivities, my anger, my lust and pride, my jealousy and sloth. And what could be stronger than that? And so, my friends, this is why I assert that strength is overrated. Vulnerability is spirit-led strength. And so I invite you to listen to your soul. Listen for the answers that propel you into your deeper self. Welcome the opportunities to befriend your vulnerability. Align yourself with divine intelligence to become more familiar with strength as it serves vulnerability. And I leave you with these questions. Are you ready to be loved for exactly who you are? How do you listen to your soul? Do you want to be healed? Are you touchable? How do you live a vulnerably strong life? How do you release your emotional armor? How does your strength support your spirit-led vulnerability? And so it is. Amen.